it out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 582nd edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and Tom Fennell. Today is the 18th of July, and I'm a little confused here because I'm dealing with a slightly new setup. This show deals with, it's a news aggregation that is done from my blog, geoharvey.com. If you want to read the stories that I'm telling you about, you can go to geoharvey.com, click on the calendar for the date. We are starting on the 11th of July, and I'll try to keep you apprised of the date. Things are changing a little bit, so we don't have anything down on the screen for you to follow, but hopefully that'll be taken care of. And so we're off. And we start with an image of the Xinjiang wind farm, or a wind farm in Xinjiang. Sorry, that's the picture that you're seeing there. That's not where the story is. This story is from Deutsche Welle, which, by the way, means German wave. The title is China Wind and Solar Capacity Nearly Twice the Rest of the World's. At present, China has 339 gigawatts of renewable generating capacity under construction. That is, quote, nearly twice as much as the rest of the world combined, end quote, according to a report by Global Energy Monitor. The United States, in second place, is building a total of just 40 gigawatts, again, according to the Monitor. And what we're seeing here is a situation in which really this is kind of hard to believe because, among other things, because of the numbers from China being hard to believe, but hard to get. But the fact is that China has by far the majority of solar cell capacity, generating capacity, that is to say, the ability to manufacture solar cells. I don't know what the percentage in China is today, but it's huge. And at one time, in the not very distant past, it was probably over 90% of the world's ability to manufacture solar cells was in China. Since that time, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, whenever, the United States has started building its own. India has started building its own. Other countries have started building their own ability to manufacture solar cells. But nevertheless, wind turbines, the Chinese have got several companies that are manufacturing wind turbines that are equal in size to anything that's in the West. And China has just been out ahead of the rest of the world in this. Okay, our next picture is a picture of floating offshore wind turbines. This is from Renews. The title is California Commission Adopts Offshore Wind Plan. The California Energy Commission adopted a strategic plan for a pathway to develop 25 gigawatts of offshore wind power by 2045 to help the state meet its climate goals. The Strategic Offshore Wind Plan will now be submitted to the California Natural Resources Agency and the legislature. Okay, the continental shelf off the coast of California is very narrow. It's not really a place where you can build regular wind turbines. There could be a few there very close to shore, but it is not a good place to build normal wind farms. These wind farms, on the other hand, are floating wind farms, and that's what you see in the picture, is floating wind farms. And well, from the nearest one of these three floating turbines, you can see a cable, and that cable is a huge cable stretching out behind it. These things are anchored, and the ships that are in this picture are not tiny ships. They're not, I mean, the one in the foreground looks like it's a motorboat almost. But the fact is that thing at the top on the right of it, which has a circle in the middle, is a landing place for a helicopter. And this ship, which is probably a support ship for a wind turbine, is not a trivial piece of work. So they're talking about building 25 gigawatts of offshore wind power by 2045. That's 20 years. It's more than a gigawatt per year average. And a gigawatt of offshore wind power is, I'm going to say, half a nuclear power plant, a large nuclear power plant. So that's where we are. The next item that we have is from ABC News. We have a picture of a wildfire, which I'm not sure where that wildfire is, but the title of the article is "Wildfire Risk Rises as Western States Dry Out Amid Ongoing Heat Wave Baking Most of the United States." The West had huge, the western part of the United States had a huge amount of water in the ground because of all the rain that it had got. And now that water is drying out because of the heat wave. Let me read the synopsis. There's a risk of wildfires rising out of the West as heat and low humidity dry out the landscape in a protracted heat wave that is expected to continue baking the area. More than 142 million people in the country are under heat alerts on July 10th. And of course, that was just about the time the heat started getting to us. Our next picture is a wind turbine. Let me put that up for you. And this is from a publication called Asian Power. Over half of turbines at Taiwan's 640 megawatt wind project start producing energy. Skyborne Renewables announced that 42 wind turbine generators at the Yulin offshore wind farm have been connected to the grid. In a statement, it also said the installation of all 80 monopiles of the 640 megawatt project have been completed. A monopile is the base of a normal wind turbine. This is an offshore wind farm. The monopiles go down through the water to the bottom of the ocean, which is at the point where these offshore wind farms are sited, is the ocean is shallow, so they can build the wind farms there. But they're going to have 80 turbines, and they've got 42 of them set up and running. This is a typical story of an offshore wind farm that is being built. I see these stories every day of wind farms that are underway, starting, finishing, whatever. And this is typical of them. They are being built all over the place. Okay, our next picture, this is also a wind farm. I like this picture. This is from Renew Economy, and the title of the article is "German Coal Power Production Drops to Record Low in Second Quarter as renewables soar to 65% share. Electric generation from coal dropped to a record low in Germany in the spring, while renewables produced more electricity than ever. Lignite feed-in fell more than 18% year on year, while hard coal production dropped more than 38% year on year. Now, one thing I should point out here is hard coal is well, in the United States, we would call it anthracite or bituminous coal. Lignite is brown coal, and it has very little energy. So what they do is they put the generating plant at the site of the coal mine. The lignite mine, there's really no point in moving lignite across the countryside because it's very cheap and it costs a lot to ship it. So they try to put the coal generating facility in the same place as the coal mine. And these coal mines, by the way, can be extremely big. I should point, I've mentioned before, there's in Germany along the Polish border, there was a lignite mine that I believe was scheduled to be approximately twice the size of the island of Manhattan. And it would have a coal burning power plant, a lignite burning power plant at some place next to it. And I was distressed when I saw this because what they were planning on doing was putting, first of all, they were going to cut down all the forest in that area because they have to dig into the ground. This is an open pit mine. But there were several villages that were just simply going to be cut down. And these villages had been there since the Middle Ages. Some of the buildings in the villages dated back to when they were founded or shortly thereafter. And so they had a bunch of buildings that were extremely old that were going to be destroyed. So I don't know what happened to that. That was at the time that this show was on, so I really don't know. But hopefully the villages hopefully they didn't build that mine as fast as they had thought they would, and the little villages are still there. Okay, our next item is a Chevy, well, what we have as a picture is a Chevy Equinox. And this is an electric vehicle. This article is from Clean Technica, and it is titled, "Is GM Making an EV Comeback?" General Motors made a press release announcing the end of its quarter sales numbers that finally had what we've all hoped to see, recovering EV sales figures. But the numbers are never anything without context. So in this article, we will cover what GM revealed and then discuss whether this means GM's EV effort is back on track or not. And this article, just as a spoiler, because I know that if I don't give you the spoiler, a lot of you are not going to go to this article and see it. But this article is this article, the author of the article talks about whether GM is really going to act like it's committed to EVs. Basically, that's the question. If GM is really committed to EVs, they're going to be able to continue selling increasing numbers of electric vehicles. We are up to Saturday, July 13th. That means that the last 3 articles were Friday, July 12th. I may have forgotten to tell you that. But we have a picture here of an offshore wind farm. And this article is from Mainichi, which is a Japanese publication. The title is "Japan Aligning with the United States and Europe over offshore wind amid China fears. Japan is enhancing cooperation with the United States and Europe in developing floating offshore wind power. Concerned over possible over-reliance on China for renewable energy for renewable energy supply chains. I'm going to put up the article so that you can see it. It has set up an industry platform for commercializing the nascent technology. Now, for anybody who doesn't know, nascent means newborn. Offshore wind power is something that is, in fact, more or less newborn. We didn't have a lot of offshore wind power anywhere when I started doing the show with Tom, I guess 12 years ago. And offshore wind power has become prominent, particularly in places like the Baltic Sea, the North Sea, off the coast of Norway, Scotland, the Irish Sea, to some extent in the Mediterranean, off the coast of Spain and off the coast of China, barely off the coast of the United States. But nevertheless, what has happened here is that much like solar panels, which were 90% made by China, China had a lot of wind turbine manufacturers, and all of them were doing pretty good business in much of the world. So what was happening was that the Japanese, Europeans, and the Americans started getting to be afraid of being dependent on China for parts, for they were afraid of having reliance on China for their supply chains, parts and supply chains, I should say. The supply chain is an important issue, and the Japanese decided that they wanted to join the United States. The United States has been very suspicious of China, and I think for good reason. On the other hand, being suspicious is going to help us in America in our economic endeavors. But we've got another problem to deal with, and the other problem is the problem of dealing with climate change. And we've got to deal with this, that is to say climate change, from a realistic point of view. We can't just say we don't want to import from China, and we've got tariffs on Chinese goods that are extremely high, that are designed to force American customers to buy American goods, or possibly European goods, but not Chinese goods. And the fact is, we've got to be able to look at this from a different point of view. And we've got to be able to look at this and say, it's so important that we get these wind turbines, solar panels, electric cars, whatever, in place, that it really is an overriding issue. And the business of having high tariffs to prevent American customers from buying Chinese goods, I think is not fruitful. That's just my opinion. And of course, the people who are saying that we should have big tariffs are people who know a lot more about such things than I do. But let's look at the next issue, the next article. Here we have a picture of an airplane, the no-EMI airplane, no emissions airplane. And this is from Clean Technica. Gotland, Sweden backs no-EMI electric seaplane for zero-emission flights. L-Fly Group developers of the all-electric seaplane program NOEMI, which means no emissions, is partnering with the government of Gotland, Sweden, on zero-emission commercial flights to the island by 2027. The parties recently signed a letter of intent for collaboration. Now, what I should do here, I happen to have a friend who grew up on Gotland, and I think lives there now. But she told me when I was young, in college, a great deal about Gotland. Gotland is a large island that is in the Baltic Sea. It has a city on it. It has a lot of people living on it. It has its own language, which is has its own publications, and the publications are in Gottish. The language is not the one that a linguist would call Gottish, but it's most similar to Icelandic, I think. And she told me that a lot of people from Gotland went through college majoring in the language, their local language, and they would get jobs, a lot of them in Iceland, because their language made it easy for them to deal with the publications that had been produced in Iceland. I shouldn't say publications, manuscripts in Iceland that had been produced during the late Middle Ages and earlier. That's more background than I should give you, I guess. At any rate, the question is, if you want to get to Gotland, how do you do it? And the answer is you spend a day on a ferry boat. If you want to get there quickly, I think this electric airplane would probably be a great way to do it. And that electric airplane, which you can see there, is not a trivial piece of work. I mean, I can't tell how many people that would carry, but it's going to be a significant number of people, probably a dozen people or more. This airplane is one of many that are being used in Scandinavia. The Norwegians have already said that they're going to be using electric airplanes for I think all of their commuter aircraft are going to be electric in the not very distant future. I think they've got that already figured out when that's going to happen. Okay, the next picture is a picture of Deb Haaland giving an address. Deb Haaland is the Secretary of Interior. This is from Clean Technica. The title of this article is Biden-Harris Administration Invests $120 million to help tribes build climate resilience. Secretary of the Interior Deb Haaland announced the availability of $120 million in funding supported by President Biden's Investing in America agenda for tribal dwellers to prepare for climate-related environmental threats to their homelands. Now, Deb Haaland is an impressive woman. She is a member of I can't remember which tribal group it is. It seems to me that it's a group in New Mexico, and she had plenty of problems in life developing what she had to develop, and then she got into politics and has been a representative in Congress. Now she's the Secretary of the Interior. She helped put together the Democratic Party in New Mexico after it kind of fell apart. And I think she's doing a fairly good job of at her post as Secretary of Interior. But she has a very broad experience. She's had experience with problems in her life. When she was young, she had a problem with alcohol abuse. She got over that. She has had various problems, working in various ways, just trying to support herself and her child as a single mother. This is an impressive woman, I think. And I kind of like to see that she's doing things that are important. Okay, our next item, we're up to Sunday, July 14th. Our next item has, okay, there we go. Our next item has solar panels, a picture of solar panels. These panels are in England, and this is from the BBC. Sonica, 600 million pound solar farm approved despite some objections. That's the title. A 2,500 acre solar farm has been approved by the Secretary of State for Energy. Sonica's 600 million pound energy farm. Now that's, how much is that? I'm going to say probably about between $700 and $750 million. In the Cambridgeshire-Suffolk border, has been given the green light. A decision had been delayed several times, including most recently due to the UK general election. So what we're seeing here is the UK's general election, which I will get back to at another article in this broadcast. The UK had a general election. The Labour Party won. Rishi Sunak is no longer the prime minister. And one of the things that the new government is pushing is green energy. So this is one of the first articles that we have seen dealing with the green energy. And okay. We are up to an article from Yahoo News Canada. This is a wind farm that you see. The title of the article is Wind Farm Planned for Area Near Proposed Gold Mine. Everwind Fuels hopes to build one of 3 wind farms it plans for Guysborough County on land not far from a proposed site for a controversial open pit gold mine and now protected lake near Sherbrooke. Everwind plans to build 2 other wind farms also in Nova Scotia. Now what's happening here is that this is a little bit confusing. These wind farms are not actually associated with the open pit gold mine, as far as I can tell, except that they they're physically near the area proposed for the gold mine. So I'm not sure what the association is. Aside from that, there might be one, but I just have not seen it. But they are they're planning to put up wind farms at the site, or at 3 sites in Nova Scotia. One of them, the site has already been approved for building wind farms. Now, I'm going to go on. We have an article next from CNN. And picture here is a picture of Texas. It's a picture of the kind of countryside in Texas that really doesn't support very much. As you can see, there's no farming being done there. And the title of the article is "Texas Needs Money to Keep the Lights On During Extreme Weather. It's funding more fossil fuel instead." Houston was struck by two massive storms this year, a powerful derecho in May and a Category 1 Hurricane Beryl more recently. Now, a derecho is just to talk about this a little bit, a derecho is generally thought of as being as powerful as a tornado, except the winds are not going in a circle. You don't have a circular cloud coming down from above. It's a straight line, and it has just unbelievable wind speeds, 100 miles per hour plus. And Houston has been struck by two of these storms this year. Now I'm back to reading the synopsis. But instead of putting money into its grid so lights and air conditioning can stay on during extreme weather, Houston is pouring billions, or somebody around Houston is pouring billions into natural gas power plants. And I can't say that I approve. Really, I can't say that I approve. They need, you know, Hurricane Harvey hit Houston again. It was during the time that we were doing this show. And so Houston has had really bad storms hit it several times in the last few years. Hurricane Harvey had rain that was just unbelievable, and it was causing flooding in areas that were not even in 500-year flood zones. And now, more recently, we've had the derecho in May and a Category 1 hurricane. And what are they doing? They're putting their money into natural gas power plants. Why? I don't know why. I'm not sure that they know why. We're up to Monday, July 15th, and we have a very handsome picture of a relic. I don't know what kind of car that is. I really don't. But it's a junker. Okay, this is from Clean Technica, and the title is, "Are we seeing a last gasp of oil from oil lovers and apologists?" This is Zachary Shahan writing. "A few recent trends got me thinking we might be seeing a last gasp for oil lovers and apologists as they try to cling to their oil-related wealth and cultural inertia. People stop buying the old tech quicker than they start buying the new tech." And the reason why Zach wrote this was he was seeing, I should step back just a second. People have been talking about electric vehicles not selling well this year. And that is utter nonsense. A couple of companies have not been selling well, but that happens every year. And this year, Tesla has not been selling as well as it might have. But the majority of the electric vehicles on the market are in fact selling well and have had increases in their numbers of sales, or the value of their sales. The internal combustion machine, gasoline and diesel oil, The cars using internal combustion machines have not been selling well and have been in decline. They got hit badly by the slowdown in economics under COVID-19, and they did not come back from that the way that they might have. The thing that Zach Shahan is expressing here is the idea that maybe we have come to a point where the internal combustion machines are no longer being sold because people are no longer interested in buying them. And the electric vehicles are taking over the market slowly, but that will probably become a faster phenomenon as we get closer to a point where it is the end of fossil fuels. An example that Zach uses in this particular article is televisions. He says people stopped buying console televisions, so television sales were down, before they started buying flat screen TVs. The people who were buying TVs knew that they were not going to buy the consoles anymore. You can barely give a console TV away these days. But they didn't know much about buying flat screen TVs, so the result of that was the sales of console TVs declined before the flat screen TVs really caught on. So let's go on. We have a picture here of a bridge in Dublin. That is Dublin, Ireland, not Dublin, New Hampshire or something like that. This is from PV Magazine International. The title is Ireland Reaches 400 Megawatts of Distributed Generation Solar. According to figures from Ireland's distribution system operator, ESB Networks, the country now has more than 100,000 rooftop solar projects, cumulatively adding more than 400 megawatts of clean energy to the national grid. Of that, 20% was installed in the last 6 months. Now, I think this is important. Ireland has reached 400 megawatts of distributed generation solar. What they're talking about here is 400 megawatts of small solar. We don't know from this article how much total renewable energy we've got in Ireland, but they are saying that they have 100,000 rooftop solar projects, and of that, 20% was installed in the last 6 months. This is actually pretty impressive when you think of it. Now, I've seen articles saying that, excuse me, Ireland has had a lot of utility scale solar. That is not included here. Ireland has had, as we mentioned earlier in the show, a lot of wind power. That is not included here. What we have here is just the rooftop solar projects. Rooftop solar projects are always difficult to assess in terms of the total that you've got. It's difficult to find out how many of them there are, but there are people who work at that. The United States Energy Information Administration, which is run by, I think, the Department of Energy, is being run so that Congress can know how much solar power has been installed in the United States. And it's been, up until 3 or 4 years ago, it was way off. in terms of its assessment of solar power in general, because they knew how much utility scale solar power had been installed, and they could report that, but they could not report the amount of rooftop solar power and solar in the backyard and even community solar, because they had a system that really only used an assessment of the amount of power available from a project if the project had upwards of a megawatt, or in many cases upwards of 5 megawatts. So they counted the solar panels that were put up at the landfill here in Brattleboro, because it was 5 megawatts. And when that was put in, it was the biggest solar project in Vermont. And what they reported was that Vermont had 5 megawatts of solar power, which was just flat out wrong. So, you know, these small systems are hard to appraise, but when you've got 100,000 of them, they add up. And that's what we're seeing here, is that in Ireland, they've got 400 megawatts of clean power on the grid, because the systems that had been installed were adding up. Now we go to space.com. And we have a question: is Earth's weather getting weirder? Wherever we look, it looks like extreme weather events. I'm going to put that picture up so you can see it. That's Hurricane Beryl. Wherever we look, it looks like extreme weather events are getting more common. Weather events happened in the past, but the problem is now they're happening more frequently and far more powerfully. The author here spoke of climate scientist, the author spoke with climate scientist Katharine Hayhoe to find out what's going on and what we can do to help. Katharine Hayhoe is a very interesting woman who is a professor at a college or university in Texas, and I don't remember which college or university it is. I think it's in Texas. She's very interesting because she is a well-informed climatologist. I think she's a climatologist. She's well-informed, and she talks about climatology. She is spoken of here as a climate scientist. She's also a committed Christian, and she kind of weaves that into her stories. Okay, we're up to Tuesday, July 16th, and we have a picture of a coal-burning power plant and an item from Energy Live News. The title of this article is Record Low Fossil Fuel Power Generation. In Europe, fossil fuel electric generation fell to its lowest recorded level in the second quarter of 2024, a report by Montel Analytics shows. It suggests the period also saw record high solar and wind output. I think those two are related somehow, leading to an increased number of negative day-ahead electricity prices across Europe. Yes, that's what happened. We had declining use of coal because we had increased use of renewable energy. We did not need to use as much coal, or the Europeans didn't need to use as much coal because they didn't need it. They have been installing huge amounts of energy, of renewable energy, both wind and solar, and anything else. And it has made a difference. So this is what's happening. We've got the lowest level of coal. Gas is low also. And renewable energy is, let's see, does it say here? We'll get to it. Renewable energy is basically taking over in Europe. And part of that is that they are trying to deal with climate change. Part of it is they're trying to deal with the war in Ukraine, because the Russians have decided that they're going to invade Ukraine and take what they feel like taking, which is land. I think they would take all of Ukraine if they have feel that they have some probability of success. I've been astonished at how well Ukrainians have been repulsing the Russians. The Russians, when they entered Ukraine, seemed to think that they were going to take the place over in a couple of weeks. I've read that the tankers in the first columns of tanks to approach Kiev had dress uniforms in the tanks so that they could have a parade, and they didn't use the dress uniforms. And I've also been astonished at the loss of life and equipment on both sides, but primarily among the Russians. Okay, we have a picture that, by the way, I'm going to mention this. That is a coal-burning power plant, and you can tell because from the two smokestacks on the right, you can see a thing angling up as it approaches the plant, and that thing that angles up is a conveyor belt that will carry coal up. Okay, we are up to where are we? We're on Tuesday, July 16th still. We have a picture of Rio de Janeiro. This is from a publication called Brazil Energy Insight. The title is Brazil's Energy Power Surge Leads G20 with 89% renewable electricity. In a world where sustainable energy is gaining prominence, Brazil stands out as a shining example. According to the latest findings from energy think tank Ember, Brazil achieved an astonishing 89% of its electric generation from renewable sources in 2023. And that is impressive. You know, Brazil has been way out ahead of the United States and Europe and India, you name it, G20 nations. Brazil has been out ahead of them because it's been on this for years. Before we got into it, it was on it. And I don't say that I approve of everything that they've done, but I think that in general, it's pretty impressive. Okay. I think we may have seen this picture before. It's a picture of agrivoltaics. And in this particular case, what you can see is the pollinator support plants growing with solar panels, which is something that is done very commonly. You can do great things with solar panels and pollinators nearby. This is from Clean Technica. Agrivoltaics conserve precious water for Arizona farmers. Arizona farmers have a problem: too much sun and not enough water. Agrivoltaics offers some relief, however. The searing heat dehydrates crops and evaporates water the state vitally needs to conserve. Creating shade using agrivoltaics is one way to combat the situation. So basically what's happening here is that the agrivoltaics create shade. And that shade is something that conserves the water. And this is something that they have known for quite some time. I remember that the Fraunhofer Institute discovered that you could get increased potato harvest. You could increase tomato harvest dramatically by planting the tomatoes or the potatoes directly under solar panels. But University of Arizona did the same thing probably a couple of years ago. And by the way, it's pretty easy to determine that solar panels don't have anything that in them that is going to affect the quality of the soil. So, you know, I know that there's people out there who will tell you that solar panels have got cadmium and arsenic and so forth in them, but they don't, at least not all of them, not most of them, not many of them. There are solar panels that have those things, and you have to buy them specially, which you would do if you wanted to have solar panels that would maintain their output efficiently at temperatures above 100 degrees. Okay, we're up to Wednesday, July 17th, and we have a picture of a wind farm in Scotland, and this is from Renews. Statkraft and Borealis signed Scottish wind PPA is the title. Statkraft has signed a fixed-price power purchase agreement with Borealis for a 106 megawatt wind farm in Scotland. The transmission-connected lime kiln wind farm, to be sited in the Scottish Highlands south of Ray, that is spelled R-E-A-Y, is under construction and will be commissioned by the end of 2024. This year it will be commissioned. So, you know, we have the idea that Statkraft is pursuing a wind farm. And the wind farm is not the one in this picture. The wind farm in this picture is already built, obviously. But they are planning on, we're seeing more solar panels and such what being installed in Britain because the Labour government has been elected. Now, that might or might not have anything to do with this story because the Scots and the Welsh had been allowing wind farms to be built onshore for quite a long time. And so there are wind farms in Scotland, such as the one that you see here, and wind farms like it in Wales. The English, on the other hand, had been very reluctant to have wind farms put up on their land. Now, the Labour government, there is a Labour government, and the Labour government is pushing to have more wind turbines and so forth installed. Okay, we're up to our last story, a little early. Oh, wait a minute. Are we? No. Okay, this is not the last story. This is from BBC. We have another picture of Hurricane Beryl. The title of this is Modern Hurricanes Are Rewriting the Rules of Extreme Storms. Hurricanes are fueled by heat from ocean waters. Ocean temperatures are now breaking all records, and these engines are responding accordingly, cutting different paths across the ocean, slowing down and becoming less predictable and more dangerous. Now this builds on, I'm going to put the picture up so you can see it. This is not the same picture that I had last time. It's just one that looks like it. The thing that's happened here is hurricanes, and I'm going to talk, I think I should mention hurricanes. Just they're not behaving the way they used to. A hurricane used to behave, hurricanes used to be very well behaved. Okay, hurricanes have always been dangerous, and there have always been a few odd ones around that were not entirely normal. But what has happened in recent times is that hurricanes, well, they travel different paths, as the article says here, across the ocean. I remember one that started farther east than we would normally have seen a hurricane start, and it went, instead of going west, which most hurricanes do, it went north, and so it hit Ireland first, and that's kind of weird. They slow down, which is part of the reason why Houston got so much rain during Hurricane Harvey, because they were living with a hurricane for days, and they are becoming less predictable and more dangerous. Well, less predictable means more dangerous, but we've seen that over and over again in the last few years. And this Hurricane Beryl was the first hurricane to form as far east as it did, coming up as far east as it did to Category 5. It was the first Category 5 hurricane this as early as it was. So that's a problem, and it has to do with climate change, and it's all, if you want to think about the science of climate change, it's all very well documented, well described, and explicable, but it makes it more difficult to predict what the hurricane is doing. Okay, this is our last image. It is an article from Clean Technica, and the picture is a picture of a 3.5 gigawatt solar plant in China, which is obviously spread hither and yon over parts of the countryside, wherever they thought it would be useful to put solar panels. And I don't know, this article is from Clean Technica. I may have forgotten to say that. China's carbon emissions fall as economy slows while other emissions rise. Okay, let's read the synopsis. Carbon dioxide emissions in China are on track for their first annual decline since 2016, a signal that the world's top polluter may have already hit a peak in its output of greenhouse gases, Bloomberg reports. Coal use for generating power plunged last month. Well, I have to say, I think that in order for us to come to the conclusion that it's over in China, we're going to have to see it be over. But now we are at the end of our story. I'll put up the last slide, in which I wish you to have a vastly contented week. Those of you who love to read Jane Austen will recognize her use of vastly has been taken here. I remember Mrs. Bennet saying, "He will be vastly happy." Okay, he will be vastly happy. I am going to say goodbye. Tom's cat is waving goodbye. Y'all come back next time you're here.